You mentioned Devontae Smith winning the Heisman as a wide receiver. I actually thought our next topic, our next player, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, could actually win the Heisman if he had played this full season. Unfortunately, that is not the case, and that leads us to our next question you put out. After it was announced that he would not be playing in the playoff and that he will declare for the 2024 or 2023 NFL draft. So you asked, how big of a loss for Ohio State is it to not have Jaxon Smith-Njigba in the CFP? Very unique circumstance, right? Because he hasn't really been a part of the team at all this season, but it still feels like a loss. But let's get to our first response. This one comes from Death from Ohio, which, aggressive, Jeff. We barely had him this season, and we looked like world beaters on several occasions. It would have helped to get him back, but we persevered without him this season. Also, I totally understand him protecting his future and declaring early. How do you feel about it?
Death from Ohio. Is that a Michigan Wolverine that once lived in Ohio? That's what that sounds like. Shout out Jake Butt, who made that decision. I think that it's not too far, but I think it's mean to say in the way that he said it about Jaxon Smith-Njigba, because that was a dude that not only was a Heisman contender, but many people thought would win the Heisman in 2022 because of how good he was last year and who he was playing with. So if you just put aside, and it's hard, but if you put aside 347 receiving yards against a very talented Utah team in a Rose Bowl win, you're still talking about a guy that the first two first rounders since 2007 at wide receiver for Ohio State, said on record, no, JSN is the most talented receiver of the three of us. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. And I would love to have that dude. And frankly, he tried to go. Like, he even tried to go at the game that Tyler and I were at Iowa, and it just didn't work out for him. But I would have liked to have seen him at the very least be a player that the opposing team, Georgia, would have to play in for, because that's gamesmanship. So I was disappointed to see this come out just on Monday, the day after we find out what the field was. But it is what it is. And I understand Ohio State fans want to do the next man up stuff, but sometimes this stuff just goes too far, because frankly, Jaxon Smith-Njigba is not getting paid to play college football. He will get paid to play in the NFL. I can see it going either way on this one. How about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I was disappointed he's not playing because I like college football and I just want to see the best players playing. It's pretty simple. I don't think anyone knows other than JSN, obviously, and his doctors, the extent of his injury, so I don't fault him for not playing, but I just wish that we as fans of the sport could experience that, because there's so many storylines with Ohio State and Georgia. Like, I'm so excited for that game, and you want to see the best players on the field. That's not going to be the case. Now, Ohio State certainly has a few other wide receivers they can throw to, which leads us to our next response from Josh R., who admits that it's a huge loss. Josh says it's huge just not having him as a decoy to draw the defense over to him and free up Marvin Igbuka. We haven't seen Ohio State fully healthy, especially at the receiver position, all year, because JSN went out, I believe it was in the first quarter of the Notre Dame game, in the season opener. So it just hasn't really been able to come together for Ohio State. Now, granted, they still have a very explosive passing attack, but it is scary to think about how good they could be if they had him out in the field, just given the seasons that, as Josh mentioned, Marvin Harrison and Igbuka have had.
Man, it was tearing people up to see Jalen Waddle get back out there, and it's like, damn it, now we got to deal with both of these dudes. We got to deal with Waddle and Smith, and I'd been arguing, and I'd still argue, Waddle is the more talented wide receiver, which is ridiculous, right? You saw what Devontae Smith was doing. But I bring that point up to say, yes, Josh has a great point about decoy. This is just one less player that Georgia has to identify. And frankly, they've seen enough of his film from last year to know what he's capable of, and that would be the film they're going on, right? So they'd have to be planning for the dude that was in 2021, not the dude that could be in 2022, however healthy that might have been. But Tyler brought up a good point here. Okay, the way I go at this is, in 2021, the best wide receivers at Ohio State were Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba, in that order until we got to about October. And then it was clear that JSN was going to ascend to that one spot. We were still running out of slot, okay? That is a wide receiver core we all said was otherworldly. In 2020, that team featured Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Jameson Williams. Oh my God. Jameson Williams transferred to Alabama because he could not get out in front of JSN. That was the best wide receiver in football last year. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, come on, man. Like, it's ridiculous. And then 2022, damn, JSN has gone out. Oh, no, I guess we have to turn to our Biletnikoff Award finalist, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the number one wide receiver in the class of 2021, and what I believe is the best all-purpose player in football in Emeka Egbuka. And, oh, my God, we have to turn to the number one wide receiver in the class of 2020 in Julian Fleming. Wow, we are really down at Ohio State at wide receiver. Brian Hartline, you're oh my God. You're ridiculous. Like, what is that? I just recited for you 3 years of wide receivers that rival what they were doing in 2019 at LSU. And everybody agrees that that offense was filthy. Everybody agrees that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase is unfair. To say nothing to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Terrence Marshall, and of course, I say of course, and then I drop Thad Moss's name. Look, I'm not going to say that you wouldn't want to have Jaxon Smith-Njigba to play on your football team. I am going to say, have you seen Marvin Harrison Jr. and that he is an absolute alien? There's a reason they call him the Martian. It's not the offense that is holding Ohio State back. It's what I'm saying, right? That's never been the problem since Ryan Day got there. Am I going too far off the deep end, Tyler?
No, I think you and I are in agreement. It's a big loss. Okay. I think they'll be okay.
Thank you for watching the #1 college football show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video so that you don't miss any of the best college football coverage in America.